Welcome to the Bonacci Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Jake Bonacci, and today I'm joined by a mixed martial arts veteran. He fought in Strikeforce, the UFC, Bellator, and now owns and operates Extreme Couture here in Las Vegas. Mr. Ryan Couture. Ryan, thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
What's going on? It's been 5 years since I've been here. Catch me up to speed. What's going on in this gym?
Oh, not too much different.
Same stuff. Yesterday was absolutely slammed on Saturday morning, which is great.
Yeah.
Great to see the business thriving.
Yeah, 5 years ago, were we even allowed to be open when you were here last?
No, we were sneaking in to catch some workouts during COVID.
Yep. Yeah, that was a strange time for sure.
That was a very strange time.
Had obviously a rough year. I think everybody did in 2020, but once they started opening things back up in 21 and we were able to operate, we really hit the ground running. And, I think it kind of worked to our advantage that people weren't allowed to do much else. So they came to the gym and 21 was one of the best years we've ever had. And we've just been continuing to try and build on that. So
That's great because so many businesses didn't make it and you guys came out of it on the better end, which is great.
yeah.
So we date back to like 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I remember your dad telling me, he's like, yeah, my son's coming down. He's going to move down. He's going to help run the gym. And he's going to pursue a fighting career. And I was like, and he's like, he's probably going to want to work with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool, And you moved down, but prior to moving down, what was life like? You were in Portland area?
Bellingham, Washington.
Bellingham, okay,
yeah.
close.
So I was working in a bank and had just maybe a year before I moved down here, I had just stumbled my way into doing some jiu-jitsu and started falling in love with training and just learning martial arts as a hobby. I always had an interest, obviously, even before Dad started fighting. I always loved, watching Van Damme flicks and running around the house pretending to do karate kicks, but never got to actually train. And then while I was working at the bank, ran into some guys I knew from high school wrestling who were like, hey, man, you got to come roll with us. We're doing jits at the Gold's Gym on Sundays. And they just had in the like aerobics room there a wrestling mat they'd roll out and, pretty much figure it out on our own at that point. I think the highest ranking person we had in that group was a purple belt. And he ended up opening up a little MMA gym in town. So I started taking classes over there and learning some basic Muay Thai and I think got my way to blue belt in jiu-jitsu before I got the offer to come here and work for the family business and was obviously interested in the sport and excited to be involved in it and have a change of scenery from getting rained on up there in the Northwest. And then really just fell in love with training when I got here. Originally the plan was for me to work for the business and try and expand. We were doing like licensed Extreme Couture facilities at that time. Mm-hmm. That was supposed to be my focus, and I just wanted to be on the mat all the time. So it wasn't too long before I kind of ditched being a businessman and decided I wanted to be a fighter instead.
Right. So you came with a bit of baseline knowledge of, you wrestled in high school too, though.
Yep.
Yeah, so you had that background, plus then you were training jiu-jitsu and a little bit of stand-up.
Yep.
That being said, you came here in 2008. We had probably the best 155 group of fighters, arguably, in the world. Absolutely. Under this roof.
Yep.
Gray Maynard, Tyson Griffin, Mac Danzig. I could go on all day.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like, rubbing shoulders with those guys right away?
I mean, that was a bunch of guys who were my favorites. Tyson Griffin was my favorite fighter to watch for years. As evidenced by all his Fight of the Night awards.
Yeah.
So it was a trip. It was kind of surreal going from like kind of converted garage gym in Bellingham, Washington,
to this,
to the best in the world in this massive facility.
Yeah.
And it was a trip. Still sometimes I come in here and train and wonder if I belong on this mat.
Yeah.
So that took a while to kind of realize, okay, I'm welcome to train with these guys and then earn my way up, earn their respect, earn to a point where I felt like I actually belonged in the room with those guys was big for me. It was a really fun process.
Because there's no free lunches here.
Oh, no. No, I remember every practice, I didn't start going to pro practice right away. Obviously, I was still pretty new and was taking the regular classes, and it was actually Gina Carano who had invited me to be a sparring partner for one of her camps, who started bringing me to pro practice. Yeah. And then after that, I just kind of kept showing up, and I remember looking around the mat every time and like, fuck, I'm the easy round today. This is gonna suck.
Yeah, like, did you ever have days, you had to have had days like back then, like where you're training with that level of talent, where you went home and were like, well, maybe, is this really for me? Did you have those days like where you're...
Oh, for sure. I remember one, I think I did back-to-back rounds with Tyson, Campman, and Pyle. I don't remember exactly which order, but Tyson head kicked me, rung my bell, Campman did what Campman does and just basically beat the brakes off me for 5 minutes. And then I think Pyle threw a spinning back kick at me that deflected off my elbow and hit me in the cup and dropped me with a nut shot. And I remember talking to Dad after practice and being like, well, I think today was a mental toughness day because it definitely wasn't fun.
That sounds like something he would say. Character building day. How long did it take till you felt like, okay, I belong here? Like this is gonna work. We're gonna go full steam ahead.
I think it was probably at least 6 months, maybe a year before like I really felt like I was starting to hold my own and seeing that progress. And obviously a lot of those guys were, high ranked in the world. I was never going to be winning rounds against them, but starting to feel like I was giving them good work. And instead of just being kind of the round off for guys, I was still able to sort of push them or help them, give them a look. And, I really enjoyed, Martin would bring me in and ask for specific things. I think it was, when he was getting ready for the Ellenberger fight, he was like, he throws a lot of, double jab overhand and would kind of give me what he wanted to see in the round. And I got good at doing that. And I think that, learning how to be a training partner was a big part of that process. And
yeah, you didn't have any like sparring remotely close to that prior to coming here?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, so you got thrown in the fire right away.
I hadn't done a lot of sparring at all until I came here. And then Joey Varner had his kickboxing class that had a weekly hour that was all sparring rounds, and that was kind of where I cut my teeth and got good at sparring, with the other sort of regular Joes. And I think that was where Gina started coming to that, and that's when she asked me to start coming to pro practice to be a body for her.
Did you do any strength and conditioning prior to coming here in 08?
No, I never had. Never anything structured. I had I think I saw Dad's video of the old Team Quest circuit he used to do that I started doing that on my own at the local gym in Bellingham and kind of just making up my own workouts, but never had any science or any structure to it.
What was it like when we first started training?
I remember being very sore, doing a lot more core work than I ever thought was possible. But starting to see the process and the progression of there's a lot more thought that goes into a strength and conditioning program than just showing up and picking up the heaviest thing you can a few times and then taking a shower after. So
yeah,
starting to learn a little bit about the science of it, I thought was really fascinating. And then seeing the results and seeing my body change and having people, in rounds on the mat being like, damn, when did you get so strong? Was like, that felt really good and really made it easy to keep coming back when you start seeing those results.
Yeah. So my approach with you when you first came wasn't a conditioning. I wasn't worried about your conditioning. You needed to get stronger.
Yep.
And that was my emphasis with you. Like, you didn't have weight room strength.
No.
But you got it because you were a year-round guy. Like, you were one of the few guys that was around unless it was 2 weeks soon, maybe after a fight, we took off. But like, you were in here year-round.
Yep.
And the numbers showed. We did a lot of Olympic lifting back then.
Yeah.
We did a lot. I mean, we pushed and pulled heavy.
Yeah, I had never done any of the Olympic lifts really prior to that. I think Dad had maybe tried to teach me how to do a snatch a million years ago, and I couldn't figure it out. So it was really fascinating, I thought, to see how fast the numbers jump when you start to figure out the technique for some of those lifts. I thought that added a different dimension to. It's not necessarily just about being strong. There's a technical aspect to this too, which I had never learned before.
Yeah, and you were like one of the few guys that wasn't banged up too, where you didn't have limitations. Like your shoulders were good, everything was good, so we could do, snatches, jerks, cleans, we could do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And you really did progress a lot. I was looking because I still have like everything.
Yeah.
And your numbers from like when we first started, like just basic pushes and pulls. I mean, you didn't have weight room strength because how would you? You didn't train it, right? But the way you progressed and throughout the year, I suppose, I mean, proof is in the pudding. It kind of paralleled with your career,
Yeah.
I remember Sean Tompkins one time when the ring was right here. He was like, "You were here for probably like maybe a year at the time." He's like, "Man, Ryan's back looks big today." You remember that? It was right here, and I was like, "Yeah, he's filling out, looking like a man."
Little boy's all grown up.
Yeah. So we trained you're the only guy that I worked with from the amateurs all the way to the UFC.
Yep.
You're the only guy.
Cool.
Your first smoker bout was here.
Yep.
In the ring.
In that same ring, yeah.
Yes. What was that like the first time? Because you had all of your peers here. Yep. The whole frickin' team was here watching those fights, remember? Yep. All the guys.
Yeah, the place was packed.
Yeah, what was that like? I mean, there had to have been pressure, right? I never asked you, but like there had to have been.
Yeah, there was always, I always kind of knew I was going to have a target on my back and a lot of expectations. And, but always felt really supported too, especially for that one because it really was just our family here.
Yeah.
All the guys we saw me grinding and working day in and day out that were always there cheering for me.
Yeah.
So it was cool. It was a little nerve-wracking, but I had all these people who'd been there and done it, helping me manage the nerves. And I'd be up trying to pace around, and Eric Uris would be like, "Hey, no nervous energy, just chill. Like we don't need to start amping up like that yet." And I think really having all those resources around to teach me how to manage that and deal with those butterflies, and it took a lot from those guys that I carried with me my whole career. So.
Yeah, those guys too, like you said, though, like couldn't have been more supportive of your journey. They didn't have to be like that. They didn't
No.
have to, and they really were. Like this was a very like tight-knit team.
Yep.
It really was during those years. And, starting at the top, with your dad, I think he attracted like-minded people,
Absolutely.
same work ethics, same values. And that's why it was, and still going.
Yeah.
Right?
I
mean,
love seeing a lot of those faces still in here to this day.
Yeah, I see it on social media. Some Jay Haran's in here training.
Yeah.
Alessio's in here rolling sometimes.
Yeah.
They've been coming here for damn near 20 years.
Alessio's bringing his son. Tavares' kids are in the kids program now.
Yeah,
Like all
it's
these
awesome.
guys that were here when I was just starting out. Now they're all older and wiser and keeping the tradition alive, bringing their own families. It's really cool.
Yeah, super cool. And I talked to Ray yesterday. Ray Seffo's been here almost 20 years.
That's nuts.
But it says something about the facility and the team and the people around that a guy of his stature wants to be here.
Yep.
He could go anywhere, and he loves it. This is home for him, and that's really cool. When you went to the amateurs, the real amateur fights, like with Tough Enough,
Yep.
and everything like that, those events, looking back, were awesome to be at. Those ballrooms that energy in those ballrooms. I don't care what anybody says, was just as cool as being at the MGM Grand sold out.
Yep.
Like the energy in those. What was that experience like? Because at that point, you're Randy Couture's son, and you're getting tossed in there, and people, some maybe want to see you succeed, some didn't.
Yep.
What was that atmosphere like, and how did that prepare you for later on?
I think I knew as soon as I guess my very first amateur fight was in Bellingham in an indoor soccer arena. It was much smaller scale. I don't remember there being much attention on that because I just don't think people knew about it. But when I signed on for that first one with Tough Enough here in Vegas and the word kind of got out, I remember getting interview requests and being totally freaked out by that because I've always been a very introverted guy who, the worst thing in the world was like in high school, I got to give a speech in front of the class. Like never was any good at that.
Yeah.
So that I was almost more scared of that than I was of getting in the ring and fighting. I still remember my very first fight being more bothered and nervous by walking out past the crowd.
Than fighting.
Then once I got in the ring and saw the other guy there, I was locked in. I was like, okay, that guy's gonna try and hurt me. I gotta hurt him first.
Yeah.
Everything else tunes out. But that walk, even all the way through my career, I think was almost the scariest part for me.
Once that was over, it was on then, right? But
yeah, then everything outside that cage just blurs and it, you just focused on what's across from you. But yeah, getting interview requests at that phase, like hadn't even really had fights yet, was a trip, and had to learn on the fly and try not to make a fool of myself.
Yeah.
But it worked out great. I felt like by the time I turned pro and anybody who was actually hearing those interviews, then I had a lot of practice and I'd gotten a lot better at it. So
I always thought the Tough Enough promotion did an incredible job of giving you guys, you and the others that fought on the amateur team, an incredible background. They prepped you really well for what was coming because it was a big deal in town. Those fights were like a big deal.
Well, they used to put like 20 fights on the card.
Yeah.
So that's why the place was so packed and there was so much energy. Flip side of that is you got to get there at like 4 o'clock for the rules meeting, and then you're sitting in the back for 5-6 hours waiting to fight. So I remember people laughing at me because I just find a table and go underneath and fall asleep. Yeah. All these other guys amped up, nervous, shadow boxing around. I was like, I got
hours.
Way too much time to be doing that. So
yeah,
I think that was part of the process too, because it's the same in a pro fight. You got to get there early to the venue, and then you're just stuck in a stupid dressing room. Like, got to find ways to stay loose and relax and stay calm and not let that nervous energy start taking over and wearing you out before you ever make the walk. So.
But that was something, I mean, you had to have learned those techniques and that way of thinking from watching your dad, too. I mean, because he was cool as a cucumber before fights.
Yeah, I remember you could always kind of tell if Dad was in his corner while they're announcing him, and he's laughing and making jokes, like, oh, he's going to hurt somebody bad tonight.
All right, so you had 7 amateur fights
Yep.
7 amateur fights total. There's one in particular that sticks out in my mind, and I'm sure you know where I'm going with this.
Yep.
It was not probably, it was my favorite fight of your career, by far. You fought Sean Bollinger.
Yep.
Was that the last amateur fight, right?
Yeah,
That was
that was the one where I kind of saw in myself what I needed to see, even though officially I didn't get the win. It was a draw, which I still think was kind of bullshit.
bullshit.
But flip side of that, I got choked unconscious at the end of the second round. The fight
Yeah,
could have
so
been over there. So
what happened was he fights Sean Bollinger, wins round 1, clear as day.
Yep.
Round 2, winning the whole round, gets caught in a triangle.
Yep.
At the end of round 2, and it's fair to say you were out.
Oh yeah.
When the bell rang, you were out.
Yeah, I came to.
I didn't want to say that. I wanted you to admit it. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I remember sitting up and seeing Ron walking out to me, and he helped me up, and I was like, oh, what happened? What did he knock me out with? And he was like, you didn't get knocked out. He goes, you were caught in a choke, you went out, but it was after the bell. We got to fight another round. And I was like, man, I don't want to go out there again.
But they're picking him up.
But I
And,
look
like-
over, I look over in the other corner as Sean's finding out that he hadn't just won the fight because he'd just been celebrating.
Yes.
And I just saw his head hang and his whole spirit
Gone.
leave his body.
Okay, you're unconscious. You wake up. What are you feeling like at that point, though? Did you feel like crap? Like, what did you?
Confused and tired. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it had been.
You only get a minute, though. He gets 1 minute to recover,
Yep.
and you got to go back out and fight round 3. What was going? Do you remember what was going on in the corner? What were they saying to you? Like, what was going on?
I think pretty much the whole minute was getting me to the corner, explaining to me that I still had to go out and fight again, and then it was like, ding, let's go. But during that time, I looked over and I saw Sean and saw how defeated he was, that he had to come back out too, because I'd been kicking the shit out of his leg
Yes.
for 2 straight rounds.
Yeah.
And came out and definitely won the 3rd round. But I think really the main thing that got me in there and kept me going was seeing how defeated he was and how much he had kind of broken from going from that high of thinking he just won.
His coaches were picking him up.
Yep.
Like it was over in his mind.
Yep.
And then he had to go back out. But at the same time, you were unconscious and probably not feeling great. And you go back out and win the 3rd round. Easy.
Yep.
I mean, you won the whole fight with the exception of, what, maybe 10 seconds, 15
With
seconds?
the exception of getting put to sleep.
Yeah, but like how was it a draw? I just watched it before,
Yeah.
about 2 weeks ago. I watched a fight, and I was like, number one, your stand-up looked great in that fight.
Thank you.
But for an amateur fight, like your
Yeah.
kickboxing was dialed in at that point, and you
Yeah.
did. You kicked the hell out of his lead leg the whole fight.
That was always my bread and butter, was that outside low kick, and really, it was the first time I really got to showcase it and put it to work like that.
Did Tough Enough ever, like, I know you went pro right after that, but did they ever try doing that again?
Yeah, they approached me
think.
about rebooking it. I was like, sorry guys, I'm planning to turn pro. I'm like, well, what if we could get, sponsor money together? Like, we think we could maybe get like $5,000 together. Would you guys do it again? But I was already in talks with Strikeforce at that point to start out in the Challenger Series with them, and really just felt like I learned what I needed to learn from that fight about myself to know I was ready for that next step.
What happened? Did he go pro too, or no?
I think he had a couple more amateur fights. I remember he won the Tough Enough title. He beat Dustin Chevalier, who's another tough guy that used to train here.
Mhm.
I think I got more than my share of concussions sparring with him. Dude was heavy-handed. But I don't remember if he ever progressed past that. I'm not sure. I think he's still coaching. He was a 10th Planet black belt, so I think he's still coaching and running a gym out in
Yeah,
California.
he was an Eddie Bravo guy, right?
But yeah, I don't know that he ever did turn pro.
Well, either way, I look back at that fight, and like you talk about being in shape to fight, not just physically but mentally, but like getting choked unconscious. It showed, number one, mental toughness, grit, all of the above, and you were physically prepped enough to get the body back
Yep.
in 60 seconds and go out and win the 3rd round.
Yeah, that was.
That's why it's my favorite fight of yours, and I think it was a testament to all the work you did in here, right? If you didn't put in that work on the mat and in here in the strength and conditioning, you might not recover well enough, right? I mean, you might not.
Yeah, all those rounds of getting trounced by some of the top guys in the world and then having to get up and still go fight another round
Yeah, and
definitely paid off. And all the work we put in over here, that Airdyne that I have a mostly hate relationship with, definitely got me through that one. And it's wild. There's probably not too many people who competed to the level that I did that still have, like, random people will bring up that fight. Like, didn't you have that fight in Tough Enough? Like, that was one of the craziest things I've ever seen, is a trip that something from my amateur career has endured that way.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I saw you fight in person in Strikeforce, and that Tough Enough atmosphere in the ballrooms was
Yeah.
crazy. That fight was insane.
Yeah, those 10th Planet Riverside guys always brought out a
They,
huge crowd. They all wore matching shirts.
oh yeah.
So you get that good rivalry with the local fans who are
Hmm.
cheering us on. Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know if there came close to or if there actually were fights in the crowd, but I remember that was always
There's a lot of liquor flowing in the crowd, probably,
that
right?
was always potentially on the table too. Made
Yeah.
those shows really interesting.
Yes. Um, then you go on to Strikeforce. You turn pro, and you go right to a big organization right away.
Mm-hmm.
Like again, kind of thrown in the fire once again, like professionally speaking, because Strikeforce at the time was right under the UFC. I mean, that was like
Yep.
right. So the level of talent in there was incredible. I mean, you fought name guys right away. You fought some tough guys. You went 6-1 in Strikeforce, was it?
I think I was 6-1 coming out of that.
Yeah. What was that like jumping on to the next stage and like fighting in the big arenas? I mean, I remember seeing you fight. I think you fought in the Palms, the fight
Yep.
I was at. Yeah.
Yep.
What was that like jumping up next level?
I think something that I loved that Strikeforce was doing, and the reason it made sense for me to go there was that they had that Challenger series, so they'd have their kind of tentpole shows, their flagship shows with the bigger names and the more experienced guys, and then they had sort of their developmental shows where they put me that, you know, they knew I had some name recognition and some potential, but still needed those earlier fights to build myself up. But they gave a platform for that, so I got to be on Showtime from my very first fight. And get that experience of a well-run, you know, big show, but still the matchmaking and the talent pool was not all the way to the deep end yet. So, you know, it was maybe tougher fights than I might have had, you know, just grinding it out on local shows, but they still had a sense of like wanting to develop fighters and get them to that next stage the right way. And I think that was a great way for me to start out to kind of get the professional experience of what the lead up is like to a big show and the production value and all of that goes along with it, but still have appropriate matchups that weren't too much too soon for where I was at in my career.
Yeah. Thinking of like some of the guys that you fought in Strikeforce, like KJ Nunes, that was a big win.
Yep. And
Like,
that was
he-
that's one that I go back and watch now, and I'm still maybe that one could have been judged the other way. That was a tough fight. I know.
I see a
don't know about
W
anyone,
if you
but-
look on shirt.
Oh yeah, I got 2 paychecks. That was really what mattered. But yeah, that was.
But he was a tough guy, beat some good guys.
Beat the hell out of me in the middle of that fight. So you know that was that fight I think was a big turning point in my career too. Just he was someone who I had seen, you know, win Elite XC title and like really to convince myself even that I should be in the ring with a guy that had that much experience at that level at that time in my career was a big deal. So I think a big part of that training camp was just proving to myself like I belong here and I can hang with this guy and not only that, but to go out there and get a win off of him was a really big deal and gave me a lot of confidence moving forward into that next phase, which, you know, that was the last Strikeforce event. And after that, I got rolled into the UFC and you know, I think if I hadn't had that kind of an experience, I'd have to dig deep and get through a really tough fight and come out on the right side of it against a guy at that level that I had looked up to before I even had stepped into the cage, was a really big experience for me.
Because he was like one I remember, like when that fight was going to happen, I was like, holy cow, he's fighting KJ Nunes. Like, this is no joke. This is like the big time right now. But and then to come out with a win was incredible. But then you moved on to the UFC. And again, no free lunches. You fight Ross Pearson first fight.
Yep.
And started off great in that fight. I mean, first round, maybe won. I don't know. But what was that like, stepping up again? Now you're in the big show, and everybody was watching at that point.
Yeah, well, we ended up being the co-main event, I think, on that Fuel TV card. That was wild. That was an overwhelming experience. First time traveling that far. We went to Sweden for that fight. Really, really cool arena. You know, that Ericsson Globe was incredible. One of the cooler venues I've ever been in. And that was a lot. First time not being able to have Dad there because the UFC had forbid him from coming to any of their events. They were mad at him at that point. I got that weird phone call from Dana in the lead up. My cell phone
talk
rings.
about that.
Cell phone rings and I answer. He's like, "Hey."
Well, first off, though, there was, like, for people I don't know, there was friction between your dad and the UFC at the time. He was basically like blackballed from the UFC.
Yeah. So at that time, he had been doing commentary for them or don't remember, it was Fight Commentary Analysis, something. He was on the desk for them, but only maybe 4 shows a year. And you know, they kept kind of promising him more, but it just never materialized. He got an offer from Spike TV to do a deal that involved a reality show with Bellator, but was also going to be for more TV projects, and that was what he was trying to pursue at that point, was acting. And so he kind of came to the UFC and was like, "Hey, I have this other thing that you know, unless you guys really are going to give me more, I can't pass this up." So he ended up leaving and taking the Spike TV deal, and Dana got pissed and made a big thing of it. It was a huge, not the first time they'd had a falling out.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, they were really mad at him, and that's right at the same time as Strikeforce is closing up, and I'm on my way into the UFC. So I get this call from Dana that's like, "Hey, you know, it's the weirdest phone call you're ever going to get. Uh, you know, you're in the UFC. We want to have you, but you know, your dad's not welcome. Like, he can't even buy a ticket to our shows, so you're not going to be able to have your dad in your corner. So if you want out of your deal and you want to follow him to Bellator and you want to go do something else, totally understand, no hard feelings. But if you want to be here, you're welcome to be here." And obviously, growing up watching him compete in the UFC and that being the gold standard for the sport at the time, I was like, everybody wants to be in the UFC. Of course, that's what I want to do. So we'll figure it out. And you know, so that was a trip, but it definitely was tough not having him there. That presence I felt missing from my corner in that fight. And my head grappling coach at the time, Neil, couldn't make the trip for that one either. So it definitely was, you know, can't blame the outcome on that, but that definitely was
Didn't
something
help.
I noticed. It certainly didn't help. And then the UFC jitters is a real thing. Like, I don't think I really acknowledged it until after, but I remember the emotional dump that I had after that fight was unlike anything I've ever felt. You know, taking a high-profile loss, my first time getting stopped in a fight, was tough too. But I think a lot of it was just that pressure and that weight of going into the biggest fight of my career on the biggest stage in the world without key components of my team there with me really was a lot.
And they threw you to a killer right away in Ross Pearson. I mean,
he's a stud. Yeah, he had the career he had for a reason. That guy was no joke.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was coming off a win over KJ Noon. So is it really that big of a step up from where I was? I don't think so. But
Yeah.
you know, I get it. From their perspective, I'm sure they weren't trying to do me any favors.
No.
But I didn't think it was a completely unreasonable matchup either, given the fight I was coming off of.
Sure. And you weren't going to get any free rides from them at that point. But then you went on and fought Ally Quinta, and you went 5 rounds, three rounds. You went 3 rounds with him, and again, killer.
Yep. We did. At that time, I think we had about the same record, and we didn't know what a killer he was going to turn out to be. So
Right.
I don't feel as bad about that ass whipping that I took. I haven't seen what he did after.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was another tough scrap, and you know, on paper looking at it, they're like, well, he's 6-3 now. Like, we can't keep him around. So got cut from the UFC at that point and had to go back to the drawing board and kind of build my way back up.
So you fought 2 fights in the UFC, ended up getting released. What was that like? Was it like a tough time? Like, it's never good losing a job, right?
Yeah.
Where were you at that point? Like, mentally, what was next in your mind? And you end up going to Bellator, but like, after that UFC release, like, what was that like?
It was disappointing, obviously. You know, I felt like I showed that I maybe belonged there, but I just hadn't performed up to what I needed to stay. And I remember Bert, before one of the fights, you know, hyping everybody up and talking about, like, you guys thought it was hard to get here, it's even harder to stay here, and it was absolutely true. Something that still sticks with me. And then even tougher once you get cut, how are you going to make your way back? You know, so kind of had to go back to the drawing board. Took a couple of fights on the regional scene and rattled off a couple of quick wins and sort of got my confidence back, got my training team in order. That was actually when Coach Follis came to the gym, and so I got to start working with him and I think really leveled up my skills and started putting things together more as an MMA fighter and less as a guy who could kickbox and who could do some jits. Started really focusing on the mixing of the martial arts at that point, which is kind of silly that far into your career to finally make that change.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that was all happened in a very short amount of time, really. It wasn't a long time window.
True.
All that stuff evolved. So then you signed with Bellator,
Yep.
and that was like maybe a breath of fresh air, like let's go,
Yeah.
like a revival.
Yeah, it was cool. It was obviously exciting to be back in a big promotion and you know, to feel really welcomed there. It was back with Scott Coker and a lot of the same people that I had worked with at Strikeforce when I just started out. So it sort of felt like a homecoming. Um, you know, really felt less pressure, less stress going into those events. Like, you know, my experience in the UFC, I'm sure is not unique in that, you know, everybody knows their job's on the line every time out. There's just so much pressure and so much, you know, okay, we made it, but now how are we going to stick around? And never had that feeling in Bellator. You know, they all were having fun and enjoying what they were doing. It just was a much more easy vibe. And you know, I remember looking forward to fight week and just having fun the whole lead up to the fight, the whole time I was there, and really feeling well taken care of in Bellator.
You
So yeah,
fought 7 times, right? 7 times under the Bellator banner, right?
sounds right.
What fights stick out to you?
Um, I think the Dakota Cochran fight was a big one because coming into that, he was known as being a tough guy and you know, hard hitter, good grappler. So to get in there and start out with a little adversity, get taken down early, and be able to reverse the position and still finish him was a big feather in my cap. And you know, felt like a lot of the work I've been doing was paying off. I was on a good streak by then. I think that was my 4th rear naked choke in a row. So yeah, that one was really cool. Um, so obviously the pit bull fight didn't go well at all. Couldn't have gone much worse. But felt cool to be getting in there with someone who in Bellator was one of their mainstays that had always been at the top of that division, and you know, to know that you know, they saw me in that class, that I could be potentially vying for a title shot if I had come out ahead in that fight. You know, was really cool, and to feel like the promotion kind of was behind me and wanted me to do well, wanted me to succeed was neat. It was a good
Yeah,
experience.
a little more comfortable of an atmosphere.
Yeah. And then obviously getting the opportunity to fight in Madison Square Garden was,
Yeah,
you know,
I was
once in
gonna
a
bring that
lifetime
up.
thing.
I was gonna bring that up. I'm an old school boxing fan, and the Garden is like obviously a historic landmark for great fights. Ali Frazier won. I mean, Joe Louis fought. I think go on. The list goes on. Everybody fought.
Yep.
Everybody that was anybody has been in that building, right? So what was that like walking out
It
in
was
MSG?
unreal. Yeah, that whole week, you know, just my first time being in New York City, you know, seeing all these landmarks and being in this city that you hear so much about, with such a cultural icon, was amazing.
Yeah.
We had a great time. They, you know, put us up in a good hotel. We were right down in the middle of it, right across the street from the Garden, and you know, just that experience of being there was unreal. So then to come out, that show was huge. There were a lot of great fights on that card.
Who headlined that?
Uh, who was the main event on that one? I remember Fedor was on the
Yes.
card.
Yeah, Fedor was on the card.
That was Fedor and Bader. That was Brent Primus fought Michael Chandler.
Yep.
Chael Sonnen fought. Who did Chael fight on that card? There was yeah, everybody was on that card. It was
Yeah.
huge. They threw the kitchen sink at that one because it was
Yeah.
their first time in MSG.
Uh-huh.
So I got to be in there early, get it over with, get the win. You know, grind out up a weight class over
That's
a
right. You
tough
fought up.
grappler.
Why did that happen? Why did you fight up in that?
I'm not sure how they decided to make that matchup, but I think maybe Ghazali asked for it. He was someone who was a draw for them, had been a big part of their events they did in Israel. So I think he had a little sway with the promotion, and I think he wanted to fight someone with some name recognition. So he asked for me, and they matched us up, and it ended up being a fun, tough fight. It was an interesting puzzle to solve because I'm used to being willing to go to the ground with whoever I fought, but I knew that was his best chance to potentially win the fight. So I got to be the guy that tried to keep the fight standing and controlling the clinch and tactically fight a little different than I had in the past. So that was fun. And then obviously not having to cut weight made the whole thing more enjoyable too.
Yeah. And then your last fight you fought in Israel, right?
Yep. It was a rematch with
With him,
Ghazali.
right. You get a win. How do you shut it off after that? Because you retired. You never fought again.
Never
7
fought
years
again,
ago.
yeah.
7 years ago, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was 2018. Another amazing experience being in Tel Aviv and seeing what a beautiful place that was, and all the Israeli fans and everybody were really welcoming. That was a really right on par with MSG, honestly, for a fight week experience. Fight went well again, another tough 3-rounder with Haim, and came out with the win. I wasn't really all the way ready to shut it off, but was kind of thinking about what's next, and you know, had been married for a while and had to start, knew I was getting older, getting to where I wasn't going to be able to do it too much longer. Remember noticing like more in training, like, oh, got to be careful about hitting the head too much, thinking more about my body and my longevity, and definitely could tell that was going to start to detract from
Yeah.
competition. Like, unfortunately, when I was young and dumb and didn't know any better, I could get knocked down and pop right back up and keep fighting through it. But the more I started to think about my long-term well-being, the less effective I became in the cage.
Yeah.
So I knew the time was coming, but I wasn't quite ready to walk away, and it just ended up not making sense to go back. Had to focus on being a husband and working towards being a father and providing and coming up with something a little more stable than fighting is.
But like historically speaking, fighters go to the well until they can't anymore.
Yeah.
So like you got to win and you're done. That's
Yeah.
rare.
I probably would have if I didn't have a wife in my ear who had.
She was ready for you to be done.
Oh yeah, she'd been ready for me to be done, I think.
Dude, like
For years.
I was talking to Chris Algieri about this, like when he retired from boxing. I'm like, I was happy. I'm like, people I care about, I love it when they retire.
Yep.
Like I don't like seeing that.
Yeah.
I don't. Like yes, I love helping you guys prepare. I love doing that. I love being part of the process. But when it's done, good.
Yep.
Like that's the way I always looked at it with people that I care about. Like,
yeah, if you can walk away from it still
Yeah.
able to have a conversation like this,
yeah, exactly.
then you did it right.
Exactly. Do you think you could have had kids and fight at the same time?
No, not been good at both. It got even just later in my career, I was trying to work more hours and teach more privates and make more money in a more reliable way, and even that detracted from really being able to throw myself into training and prepare properly. So
Yeah.
I think adding the wrinkle of being a decent dad and being there for my kids and even just the lack of sleep from having small kids
Oh,
would have
gosh,
made it
yeah,
impossible. I don't know how guys do it.
Yeah, some guys are able to do it and others can't. Like
Yeah.
I've seen in my career, fighters that had kids, it's not the same after that.
Yeah.
Some of them just aren't. It's not the same. They soften you up a little bit too. I think. I don't know. I have a daughter. I mean, like, you're not. They change you. They definitely change you for
sure.
better.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
You see some people, it gives them that purpose and it motivates them, because now I got someone to feed, I got a mouth to feed, I got someone
Yeah.
to provide for, so I got to go out here and make this money.
you got to look at it that way if you're gonna do it, right?
But yeah, I think definitely has made me an old softy, and I'd rather be home chasing my 2-year-old around and laughing and playing than in here getting my head beat in. So.
Yeah. What was the night for you? Like looking back, what was the pinnacle? If you look back and like one night that sticks out through your career, if you're gonna have to live one night over again for the rest of your life, what is it? Career speaking.
I think, honestly, the fight that I still look back at and enjoyed the most was when I fought Connor Hune in Columbus, Ohio. A lot of things that were cool about that. I got to fight, the weekend of the Arnold Classic in the same venue where Dad beat Tim Sylvia to reclaim the heavyweight title after coming out of retirement. So that was just kind of cool to follow in his footsteps and fight in that building where he fought. And then I think that was my cleanest, everything went to plan, most dominant performance against a guy who at that time was a big step up in competition, had a lot more experience than me. So that's the one I think in a lot of ways I'm most proud of. Just to get in there and feel like I was on autopilot and everything was working and to beat him up and stop him when, the whole lead up to that fight when it got announced, I was like, man, this guy's like the Terminator. He just walks through punches and keeps coming, and you got to be ready to. I remember him saying, like, I'm ready to die in there, and thinking, like, well, I guess I got to be ready to kill him then.
Yeah.
And that really, I think he brought out the best in me, and that was one of my best showings, I think, for where I was at in my career versus where he was. To come out and dominate like that was a big deal.
If looking back and thinking about past battles, if you could run one back, one that you could get back, one that you might think about, man, if I just would have done this,
Ooh, that's tough. I think the Syed Awad fight I'd like to have another crack at. I think I could have approached that one a little differently.
How so?
Just finding a way to get to the grappling and get to my game better. I think that one, Pitbull, a few of these where I ended up in striking matches that I shouldn't have been in. I think getting more creative and more urgent about forcing the grappling, forcing them to clinch with me, forcing them to play my game. And whether it would have come out any different is hard to say. But I think some things strategically that maybe I didn't have in my tool bag back then that I do now. I would have liked to go back and try again and
Yeah.
see if a different approach would have worked better. I think I had several fights where I was a little too willing to go with the flow and like, I guess I'll try striking for a while and see when the opportunity is there. And I needed to be like, no, we're not doing that. We're closing the distance and we're grappling right now. Because, play with fire, you're going to get burned. Those guys hit hard, and I knew it, and it shouldn't have been there to be hit.
Makes sense. So then when you retired, you shut it down, and now you're the owner of the place that built you. What has that been?
It's a trip.
Taking over the business and now you're in a totally different role. I mean, you're still training and stuff, but being the guy now, what's this been like, this process?
It's been a learning experience and a big adjustment from, being all my peers and my teammates and my buddies to like having to try and be an authority and be the boss now is tough for me. I find that's that stepping comfortably into that role has probably been the hardest part. Learning to keep the books and do the admin stuff. A lot of that kind of makes sense to me is all.
Your banking career is coming back.
Yeah, it wasn't too far out of my wheelhouse, but trying to be a manager and be a boss and tell people what to do is tough for me. It's not in my nature.
Yeah, you're not like that.
So thankfully, I have a wife who's very helpful and who has a lot of those communication skills and things that I lack, and doesn't have that baggage of having trained next to these guys and bled with them for years. And she helps steer me on the right path and has done a lot to contribute and make this place better.
Awesome, because I've been here the last couple of days and this place was packed yesterday. I was like, I don't know that I've ever seen this many people.
Yeah,
yesterday on Saturday morning, I was like, holy cow, it's packed. Couldn't believe it, which is great.
We need a bigger parking lot at this point.
For real, yeah. So this is the full-time gig now. I was thinking like, now this gym is what, 18 years old?
Yep.
Right, going on 19.
Yep.
Yeah, next, it opened in what, like February or March?
I think it was right around the Sylvia fight. It was like February, March 2007 is when it opened to the public.
Yeah, and I came in May from school for my inaugural stint here.
It was an internship, right?
Internship that really wasn't an internship. I thought it was an internship, but it just wasn't. I got thrown right in right away, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, like, growing up, you hear about like the famous boxing gyms. Here Muhammad Ali trained at the Fifth Street Gym in Miami, which is no longer there. That got demoed a while ago. There's a new one, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
You have Joe Frazier's gym in Philadelphia, which obviously doesn't exist anymore either.
Yep.
You have, let's say, Muhammad Ali's old training camp in Deer Lake, Pennsylvania. I heard about as a kid, and I always was like, man, that's like just such a cool piece of history.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking like, this place is that.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You're damn near 20 years in on this. And the people, the amount of talent, the legendary fighters that have trained right here at this point is incredible. And it's still going stronger than ever. Those other gyms didn't make it. They had a short window, they had a short life. Another one, Kronk Gym in Detroit, which doesn't exist anymore. Had its run, whatever.
It's a tough business. I mean, margins are thin, even in good times, and especially on the scale that we're doing it. I think we were one of the first kind of mega gym all-in-one. Back in the days when people would go to the boxing gym over here and the grappling gym over here and the Gold's gym over here to put it all together. That was what Dad wanted to build. Obviously, he had done it with Team Quest, but he had an even bigger scale in mind here and wanted to be a one-stop shop for getting ready for an MMA fight. And we've obviously proven that's a successful model. And, we just keep trying to make it better and do it better, fine-tune what we do and keep the facility current and keep giving people what they need and turning out good fighters.
Mm-hmm. But for fight fans like me growing up, it's going to be like that for this place. People are going to, and they probably already do, they probably come to Vegas and like, I want to see Extreme Couture. I remember when your dad was fighting, people would be lined up outside. They would shut the gym down when he was training at night on fight week. People would be standing outside. They just wanted to come in here.
Yeah.
And now you're dipping into 20 years and all the other champions that have come on. You had Francis here. You name it, the big names that have trained here. I think there's going to be people like me when I was younger being like, I want to see Extreme Couture. Like, that's freaking cool.
You lose track of that sometimes being
here every
immersed
day.
in it every day for what, 17 years now I've been here. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's cool if I can try to take a step back and remember what a special place this is,
Yes.
and what it means to people.
Yeah,
We
because
have one of our jujitsu coaches, Nick, that I don't remember how it even came up, but we were talking to him like, how'd you end up here? You know, what brought you guys to Vegas? And said his wife had been a traveling nurse. He was running a gym out east, and she was ready to be done traveling. And it's like, if we were to pick somewhere to move, maybe out towards the West Coast, where would you want to go? He goes, Vegas. I want to go to Extreme Couture. Maybe I can get them to give me a job there. But he showed up, just had been a fan of the gym and the fighters we produced for years, and moved cross country, brought his life here, hoping to maybe get a job, started training as a member, and got on with our jiu-jitsu program, and is now you know, working full time here. So
there you have it.
that's pretty cool.
Prime example, right?
Yeah.
How that, you know, the history of this place just continues to pump out good things. And I mean, I remember like in 07, 08, 09, like you never knew. 2010, I was here till 2013, but you never knew who was going to walk through the doors on any given day.
Yep.
Like, as far as fighters, I remember Vanderlei Silva walking in, you know, Vitor trained here, Mark Coleman, like all these legends, Randleman, all these legends.
You're seeing pay-per-view fights in the training room every day. You know,
Yes.
when Vanderlei and Forrest would throw down was
I saw
must-see
them.
TV.
Yes, right here in the octagon, I remember that, those two going at it. I remember your dad and Vanderlei grappling in 07. I was sitting there watching, I was like, this is a fight that people would want to see.
Yeah.
Because, you know, pride in Japan and
break pay-per-view records for the sport at the time if they had done it.
yeah, and I was sitting there like, holy cow, I'm getting to see this right now. Like, it was just incredible. But I remember, yeah, Vanderlei and Forrest scrapping too, right here. I was like, man, that probably isn't good for longevity.
Yeah, we didn't train with a lot of sense back then.
But anyways, we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
I wish you continued success. I love coming here. Every time I come here, it's the same vibe that I had in 2007, and I'm always gonna come here. You take over. You know?
Yeah.
Take over your office and act like I own the place. Use the weight room. You know. But yeah, wish you nothing but best. Keep it going like you're doing. This is incredible. Incredible atmosphere.
That's the plan. I want my kids to grow up in here too. So
Exactly. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.